Have you ever wanted something so badly that it seemed to move farther away? The harder you reached for it, the more distant it became. You planned carefully. You measured your steps. You tried to make each decision count. And still, the thing you wanted behaved as if it were held by an invisible tension. Every time you reached for it, it slipped away again. Success felt close enough to touch, but never close enough to stay in your hands. Then something strange happened. You grew tired of gripping so tightly. You stopped pulling on the string called "it must happen." Your attention returned, at least for a moment, to the life already in front of you. And quietly, almost without warning, the thing you had been chasing began to move closer. Why does this happen? Is it just one of life's contradictions, or is there something deeper at work? Perhaps there is a larger order in life that does not respond well to panic, force, or constant pressure. It waits for a steadier kind of trust. Letting go does not mean that you stop caring. It means that you stop demanding to know exactly when and how the answer must arrive. Sometimes the door is already opening, but your hand is still closed too tightly to receive what is waiting on the other side. Welcome back to Momentum Arc, a space for inner exploration and spiritual growth. Here, we return to the quiet shifts that can change the course of a life. Esther Hicks became widely known through the teachings she describes as coming from Abraham. Together with her husband, Jerry Hicks, she brought those ideas to a wider audience in the book Ask and It Is Given. At the heart of the book is an idea that has drawn spiritual seekers for years. Thought and feeling are not sealed off inside us. They help shape the reality we enter. They affect what we notice, how we interpret events, and which possibilities feel real enough for us to move toward. In this framework, the universe is not a passive backdrop. It is full of movement and possibility. Day after day, whether we notice it or not, we remain in relationship with it. Our thoughts, expectations, and the way we hold a desire influence the openings, responses, and experiences we begin to meet. A desire, in this view, is not a problem to eliminate. It shows where life is asking to expand. But desire can be held in two very different ways. It can feel like a quiet direction, or it can become a daily argument with the present. When desire is held with steadiness, it changes the way you move. You recognize the conversation worth continuing, the chance encounter, the unexpected invitation, or the insight that clarifies the next step. The response may not look magical. Often, it begins as one ordinary opening that would have been easy to miss. And yet many people run into the same difficulty. They ask clearly. They try to stay positive. They hold the vision of what they want. Still, nothing seems to happen. The result feels delayed, distant, or completely absent. Frustration enters. They begin checking for proof and wondering whether the practice is empty. According to Esther's teaching, one essential step has often been missed: letting go. The deeper lesson is not simply to ask. It is to stop turning the answer into a daily test of whether life supports you. To understand letting go, we first have to understand what it does not mean. It does not mean that you stop caring. It does not mean giving up. And it certainly does not mean pretending you no longer want the thing that matters to you. A sincere desire still matters. You may long for a healthier body, more financial room, a more loving relationship, or a life that feels more aligned. Whatever the form, that longing usually begins as an honest call for change. Think back to any period when a wish became real in your inner world before it became real in your outer one. Once it mattered deeply enough, your attention started to reorganize around it. You noticed things you might have ignored before. A sentence landed differently. A person stood out. An opportunity that once looked irrelevant suddenly felt connected. In that sense, desire does begin to move reality. Not through spectacle or magic, but because it changes the way you move through the world. But there is a point when desire can quietly turn into pressure. You refresh the inbox again. You check the numbers again. You replay the same conversation, looking for a clue you may have missed. You make another plan, then replace it before the first one has had time to work. The mind calls this vigilance. The body experiences it as tension. A sincere desire is like a seed. It asks for care, patience, and some cooperation from your thoughts, emotions, and actions. But once the seed is planted, another kind of wisdom is needed. You cannot keep digging it up every day to check whether it has grown. That is where letting go begins. You continue to hold the desire, but you stop feeding it with panic and constant checking. You remain open, but you stop trying to force the process. One approach protects the seed long enough for it to grow. The other crushes it because you cannot tolerate the waiting. Letting go does not remove the desire. It changes the way you carry it. Real letting go is an act of inner trust. You still care about the result, but you stop treating uncertainty as an emergency. The desire remains. What changes is the way you carry it. Think of it as unclenching a fist. The hope you were gripping does not disappear when the hand opens. It finally has room to breathe. It has room to move in directions your anxious mind may not have considered. Control often feels responsible. It tells you to think harder, check again, and prepare for every possible outcome. But beneath that constant effort, the body remains tense. The mind begins scanning for danger. A delay feels like rejection. Silence feels like a warning. One small obstacle can suddenly look like proof that the whole path is collapsing. When the pressure eases, the world does not become perfect. But your field of vision becomes wider. You notice the conversation worth continuing. You recognize an idea that deserves another look. You respond to the opportunity in front of you instead of losing energy to 10 imagined disasters. This is why your emotional state matters. Gratitude, appreciation, and a simple sense of enough can create more room inside you. Worry, resentment, and quiet dread narrow that room. What might have looked like an opening begins to look like risk. What might have felt possible begins to feel unreachable. Practices such as prayer, meditation, visualization, time in nature, or creative expression can help. Their value is simple. They return you to a steadier center. They help you work through what you are feeling before panic makes the next decision for you. The goal is not constant positivity. That becomes another form of pressure. The goal is enough calm to see clearly and act with intention. Think of a chess game. You study the board. You consider the move. Then you make it, and you allow the game to unfold. You do not sweep the pieces away every time uncertainty returns. Trust still acts. Trust still responds. It simply stops demanding that life reveal the entire route before you take the next honest step. Once people begin practicing this, another question naturally appears. How do I know when life has answered me, and how long am I supposed to wait? There is no single timetable that fits everyone. People's circumstances are different. Their beliefs are different. Their emotional patterns are different. Some people see change quickly. Others move through a longer season of waiting and adjustment before anything becomes clear. But the response rarely arrives in only one form. It may come as an unexpected piece of information or a timely meeting with the right person. It may appear as an invitation, a surprising offer, or a sudden flash of clarity. Sometimes the answer is a new opportunity. Sometimes it is the courage to walk away from an old one. Sometimes it is simply the moment you stop postponing a decision you already know you need to make. These moments are easy to miss when you are demanding one specific outcome. If you wait for one door to open in one precise way, you may overlook the window beside it. Release sharpens attention. It makes you less desperate for spectacle and more available to what is actually happening. This is where manifestation becomes practical. You still answer the email, you make the appointment. You update the resume, study the market, have the difficult conversation, or begin the project. Letting go is not a reason to withdraw from life. It is a way of entering life with less wasted tension. A clear mind can act. A frightened mind can also act. But the two do not notice the same world. This is where the teaching has to face real life. What happens when the pressure is not abstract at all? What about work, money, illness, family strain, or exhaustion? Can letting go truly matter in a life that feels this heavy? The answer is not that reality disappears. Letting go is a way of meeting what is hard from a steadier place. When you stop gripping the outcome, more energy becomes available for the next step in front of you. But another question remains. If letting go matters so much, why do some people practice it for years and still feel that very little has changed? Often, they have slipped into another form of control without realizing it. On the surface, they say they have let go. Inwardly, they are still measuring, judging, and waiting for proof. Their posture becomes, "I will relax, but only so I can finally get the result." That is not surrender. It is pressure wearing softer clothes. Others turn trust into a way of avoiding action. They believe everything will arrive at the right time. But when the moment comes to tell the truth, leave a harmful pattern, or take a concrete step, they retreat. There is another trap that is quieter still. After too much waiting, some people become numb. Their disappointment hardens into detachment. Their openness flattens into emotional fatigue. They call it letting go, but the heart has already started closing. True letting go leaves the heart open. It allows disappointment to be felt without allowing disappointment to define the future. It makes room for reflection, adjustment, and action. Manifestation is not simply a race toward one desired outcome. It is also a repair in your relationship with yourself. After a setback, can you remain steady? After disappointment, can you refuse to turn against yourself? That is where trust becomes real. At its deepest level, letting go brings you back to the present. It helps you respond to this moment more fully instead of living entirely inside the result you are waiting for. If you are just beginning, be gentle with yourself. Do not demand immediate proof. Start by observing your thoughts honestly. Notice your emotions without fear. Shift one recurring negative belief into something more life-giving. If there is a practical action available, take it. If there is nothing useful to do, let the mind rest. You do not need to abandon the vision. You need to stop turning the vision into a demand that consumes the present. This is what letting go makes possible. It gives life room to move. The future does not always need to be pulled toward you. Sometimes it needs space to approach. Perhaps one day, looking back, you will realize that many of the desires that once burned so intensely in you did come to pass. Some people find the work they longed for. Some enter the relationship they once thought impossible. Some recover from old pain and feel life returning in a new way. And even then, the path does not end. One fulfilled desire often becomes the threshold of another. The conversation between longing, trust, action, and life keeps unfolding. In the end, letting go is not a trick for getting what you want faster. It is a way of understanding life and a way of participating in it with less fear. Little by little, you begin to create the future you once tried so hard to force. And one day, almost without noticing, you realize that you are no longer waiting for your life to begin. You are already inside it.